or should we go for it?
We've got a few more maybe who might kind of join as we go, but
Ah, that's okay. Okay.
It'll be a very intimate group. Glad to see none of you are in your PJs. And we don't have to target any of you to turn on your cameras, so you're already excelling.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just intro this. So welcome to, this is session 4. You might have gone to previous sessions. If not, then welcome to what is the First Role Fundamentals. So this is very much run by the Future Leaders Advisory Groups, and these sessions are designed to help you kind of upskill as you go into those sort of first roles. So this is Skill Up, Stand Out, which is a catchy title. Corey, do you want to kind of introduce yourself more? I know we've just had a bit of an intro there, or
Sure. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about our journeys and paths, but I work at Leith, which is a creative agency headquartered in Leith, hence the name. But I run sort of new business and marketing and sort of all aspects of BD for the agency. So lovely to meet all of you guys.
nice. And I work for Multiply, which is another creative agency, just at the top of the meadows, and I specialize in sort of brand strategy, campaign strategy, anything strategic. So it's nice and creative. So on that note, today, I didn't know there was animation to this slide, so that's exciting. Today, we're going to be kicking off by talking about how you can kind of find your niche and your own personal brand. And then Corey will take you through sort of more strategic skill development and how you can kind of position yourself for opportunities, kind of coming into the industry. And then we'll also obviously do a bit of a Q&A. So if you've got any burning questions, feel free to note those down and we'll have a bit of a session at the end of the talk. So I'll kick us off. So starting with finding your niche, what do we mean by this? So I'm just going to move everyone out of the way because I actually can't read this slide. There we go. Nice. What makes you different is such an existential question to start this presentation, but it's quite a nice way of thinking about how you are thinking about applying for jobs. Obviously, in a sea of sort of marketing graduates, a lot of people are going to know the same theory. You'll have all been through the same learning. So it's really important that your CV and how you approach jobs kind of position you as a really kind of unique offering. And this can be really tricky. I feel like I remember when I was applying for jobs, and the job description itself would say something like, oh, it's a graduate level entry job, but we also want like 5 years of experience. And I'd be like, I don't understand how that works because I've just come out of university. So how can I have this experience? So with that in mind, having not had, vast marketing experience to get into the role, you might want to be thinking about what still gives you a competitive edge. And so a nice way of thinking about this is your background. So maybe there are skills that are personal to you. So maybe you're bilingual, maybe you're already in a bit of a first role, you're working in retail, maybe you're leading a university society. These things might feel quite everyday to you, but actually these are things that unlock a lot of potential skills and are things that employers are looking for. You might also think about your thinking style. So what do you actually bring to the table when it comes to marketing? So it might be that you're somebody who's really good at looking and translating research and data. You might be somebody that's really good at storytelling and copywriting. You might be somebody that's more sort of design-led. Creativity is a really broad word and there's lots of different applications to it. So navigating what your kind of niche is within that space will help you sort of refine what your offering is. And lastly, your obsessions, because actually being passionate and being enthusiastic is really, really important to this industry. So what are things that you genuinely care about? And is it maybe something that kind of relates to a certain area of marketing as well? Not only does that help the employer, but it also helps you in terms of figuring out this very first step of what your career path is. And to kind of summarize this in a sentence, the marketers that stand out aren't trying to fit a certain mold. They're the ones that are often bringing something unexpected to the table. These are the people that when you're interviewing 5-10 different people, there's something really memorable about that one person. And if you can refine that in your offering, then that's always a really, really good place to start. So easier said than done, obviously, but fortunately, we've got a lovely little diagram for you to kind of identify what that sweet spot is. So first thing to look at, what are you good at? What are you kind of getting lots of good feedback in? What's always a really positive skill for you? That's a good place to start. That helps you kind of bring the wins to the table. And then also what you love, because again, passion and enthusiasm is really important. And I remember when I left university, I was watching kind of fellow grads get into like NatWest grad schemes, and I was getting so annoyed about it because I was jealous. And then I was like, I would hate to work in finance. I'm not numbers driven at all. So it's really important that you carve out what you love, because then that helps you identify the path that you want and avoids any kind of weirdness around where you're looking to go. And then lastly, what the market needs, which is always good from both a kind of personal growth point of view, but also good to always be conscious of what conversations are happening in marketing right now. As we know, there's obviously always going to be a lot of discussion around things like AI, but always look beyond AI, look at things like sustainability, look at energy, look at kind of relevant trends, and that will help you identify what certain jobs are looking for, what certain employees are looking for. And from a, if you're looking to go sort of in-house, obviously you would do a lot of reading about that brand, that client, that business. If you're more agency side, you can do loads of reading about those existing clients that they have and whether or not there's anything that they already have that exists within their work that you are passionate about. So you're sort of answering their questions as well as what you're good at and what you love as well. So this is quite a nice diagram to start with, and feel free to take just a screen grab of this. Another way to do it is to just do like lots of individual lists where you're kind of mapping out all of these different 3 spots, and then just join the dots and find out what it is that kind of targets your interest as well. So I'll hand over to Corey. We thought we'd talk a little bit about our kind of paths into marketing. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I grew up in the Midwest in a really small town in Missouri, and went to university in Nebraska, which is also the Midwest, if you're not familiar with it. But I actually started my career in New York. And so the only way I was able to really make that huge jump to go from Missouri and Nebraska, Midwest to New York City is really finding that niche. So when I was in college or uni, I helped to start a student-run ad agency called Yacht Club, and I did that with a professor and like 10 other students that were in the same program as me. And it was a really good way of literally just sort of setting up something our own and going out and finding our own clients and then working in sort of digital. It was mostly based on digital and social media marketing because this was 2010, so no one really knew what to do with social at the time, especially owners of brands. So it was an easy way for us to tap in. And you know how Kate talked about when you come out of uni, they're asking for all this experience, even though you just graduated. You kind of have to sometimes just make up your experience or like make your experiences happen for you as opposed to waiting for someone to hire you. So that's kind of what I did. And it led to getting a more specific internship at McCann, where I moved to New York for one summer. And then I ended up moving back to New York for once I graduated uni to work for L'Oreal. And again, on those niche spots, what I loved was I loved all of digital platforms. I was on all of the blogging sites back in the day, all of the social media sites. I had a profile for everything for just myself because I loved it. The brands and the market needed it because no one knew what to do with it. They saw me as a shiny 21-year-old and they're like, here, go manage all of Garnier's social media. And I said, okay, I can do that. And then, well, wait, can you go back to the other Venn diagram? What's the third one I'm missing?
That's oops, sorry. That's what you love, what the market needs.
Market needs, yeah. And then what I was good at was all of that. And I could evidence that by some of the work we did at Yacht Club. And so that's kind of how I found my niche, which was digital marketing and specifically social media marketing, which sounds so crazy to say in 2025 because now there's literal full teams of hundreds of people and thousands of pounds being spent in producing social content. And back in the day, it was literally me in my bathroom taking photos of the Garnier new products or in my mom's bathroom. Or sometimes I would go and like buy a couple pieces of tile from like the B&Q equivalent and make up a bathroom scene because I was so tired of my own tile. But that was kind of how I found my niche. And then throughout my career, I've kind of moved around from client side to agency side, working in client services, and then now doing BD. And to be honest, the only way I've been able to kind of jump around from role to role and make kind of adjacent moves is really focusing on what I'm interested in and what the niche is. And so now my focus is less on, it's not actually focused at all on social media or digital anymore. Now it's focused on new business and marketing for an agency, which is very different than marketing for, a brand. But I was able to do that and raise my hand because I loved pitching. Like I loved meeting new clients. They needed people, the agency needed someone to do that. And I was really good at it and had a good track record. So again, that's now my new niche kind of moving in. So I think this is all to say, I mean, Kate, do you want to talk about your path and then we can summarize
Yeah.
that?
I was just thinking, I love the idea of you going to B&Q and getting some tile and shooting in your bedroom. I feel
In New
like
York City, I was
that's
at Home Depot and I was like schlepping home with this tile. Like, who
this,
am
I
I?
feel like, is what it used to be. I was actually speaking to someone the other day who works for an agency in London, and they just have like a whole team of 20 Gen Zers that just sit in a room and scroll on TikTok and find like relevant trends for all of their clients. Like some sort of like TikTok farm. It's crazy. But here's a
Yeah, it's crazy how it's changed so much.
Yeah. So my kind of path obviously slightly different. So I started a Go Outdoors clothing center, which I was very much a lot of like fishing gear. Definitely not where I wanted to be, let's just say. And then I studied English at university, and I was kind of teeing up the idea of going into journalism. So I always had like a kind of creative and sort of copywriting background. And then I did a kind of digital internship over in Amsterdam to explore sort of more marketing. And that was definitely where my interest was starting to lean towards instead of journalism. And then came to Edinburgh in 2019 purely just to come to the Fringe. And it's now been 6 years and I still haven't left. So I think that speaks volumes about how much I really like Scotland. But what was really good is that at the time, even though I didn't have a job in marketing, I set myself a deadline. I got here in August and I said, if by December I can't get a job here, then I'll do something else. I'll find something else. I think that's really important when you're applying for jobs because it does just feel like a bit of an endless slog. So, kind of setting yourself personal deadlines and goals is quite a good way of approaching it. But what I did start doing was waitressing, and with waitressing came whiskey tasting knowledge and kind of bartending and a lot of knowledge in spirits. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that was definitely kind of teeing me up for the role that I'm in now. So never overlook your first job, because to me that was just like a clock in waitressing shift. But had I not done that, I would not have been set up for the job that I'm in now. And that was when I got an internship at Multiply. And this was in 2019, sort of November 2019. And I was like, oh my God, there's a whole year ahead of campaigns. This is so exciting. I can't wait to get my feet on the ground. This is going to be great. And then obviously COVID happened in 2020. And that's when you kind of really see where gaps in businesses can exist, and sort of similar to what Corey was saying, and kind of taking notice of sort of potential opportunities, making those opportunities for yourself, not waiting to be hired to do a certain job. I took it upon myself to grow sort of a social media digital marketing offering within the agency, and fulfilled that position. And to be honest, it's a good thing because I didn't really have anything else going on in 2020, much like a lot of other people. So that was very much an opportunity that came from something that wasn't so great, but ultimately led to the kind of career growth that I've seen now. And then since then, I've worked across sort of social media and then into more sort of a client service facing role, doing sort of pitching as well. And now kind of landing in strategy. And strategy is such a great word because it's so all consuming and you can do lots of different things, which is lots of fun. So yeah, I would definitely kind of get the key takeaway being, if you are in a job now that is waitressing or retail, you can really make that work a lot harder for you. And there are opportunities within that to definitely grow what your CV is saying. So yeah, that's very much my kind of weigh in. And then what we thought we'd do, because this is fun, is a little poll, because we're keen to know what everyone else's sort of interests are at this stage. And this is definitely not the right answer, and it might change next week, but we'd love to know the kind of area of marketing that excites you guys the most, and maybe that will help you carve out a bit of niche as well. So yeah, I think that's up on the screen. Is that up on the screen?
Yeah, it's on the screen. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
No, it's fine. And while we're waiting for the results, can we just sense check with you guys since there's only 6 of you? We can keep it quite intimate, which is great. But how many of you are still in uni and looking for that your first role? Okay, so do you all have roles already? You've working at a
Yeah,
company.
I do.
Perfect. Okay, cool.
Cool.
That helps with some of the later stuff to come. Just
Nice.
making it as much as relevant as possible to you. Cool. What's the results, Kelly? Oh, here we go.
So
Nice.
nice. Yeah.
No one's interested in analytics.
I always feel bad for research teams. I'm like, guys, it's not the hot topic, unfortunately, but it's cool.
Or influencers.
Digital.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Nice. So into building your personal brand. So good to know that everybody is across a first role already. But there is definitely still evolution that you can apply to your own CV. And this is very much about kind of what people say about you when you're not in the room. So in terms of your existing LinkedIn profile, and LinkedIn, I feel for a lot of people is a very love-hate relationship. Some people are absolutely across it. Some people are like, I can't stand this. And that's so fair. But what is good about LinkedIn is that it is a digital touch point for you and your personal brand. And so making it at least look really good, even if you're not consistently posting across it, is still really important. So when it comes to building your kind of personal brand and your reputation, things that are important to consider. What is your point of view? So what do you stand for in marketing? The role you're in right now might be exactly that in terms of what you stand for. It might be something that's very social driven. It might be kind of actual kind of trends. It might be something to do with authentic storytelling, but it's good to have opinions because then when it comes to things like job interviews or networking, you're able to have something teed up, which can always be more anxiety inducing if you don't have something teed up. What's your presence across channels? Yeah, LinkedIn does matter, but where else are you visible? So you might have a portfolio, you might have a newsletter, you might even have a TikTok that shows your career progress. If you do, that's great. Always think about your kind of digital presence, both from a personal point of view and from sort of like a employer perspective as well. What are your contributions? Maybe you're commenting on posts, maybe you're sharing insights, maybe you're writing a perspective on industry news. To be honest, there is always a lot of content that is getting churned out on a day-to-day basis. And I always think it's really interesting when you read something that's very thought leadership driven and isn't just kind of a, lol, look at this. Have you seen this? I think it's always more interesting when somebody's got something rich to say about a campaign. And it doesn't have to necessarily be positive. It doesn't need to be negative. It's just interesting to hear takes and keep the kind of broader conversation about marketing going on, especially within Scottish marketing in particular. And finally, what's kind of consistent within your career growth? So if I was to look at your first role to where you are now, to where you're looking to go next, is there consistency between the roles that you have? Have you pivoted and gone somewhere else? Is there a reason behind that? How does that reflect on your CV and on your LinkedIn as well? And yeah, your personal brand isn't about being famous. I think in today's kind of influencer culture, you can definitely see a lot of like LinkedIn influencers in that sense. But really, it's just about being memorable to the right people, doing something, writing something that's really rich, exploring a certain topic, that being a really memorable take. Says a lot more about who you are and your kind of critical thinking than liking a post, for example. The value of your current role. So how to make the most of this. And the good thing is all of you are pretty much in your first roles as well. But as part of that, there's some kind of good little tips you can do. So document everything. Corey and I were talking about this. Don't do it anymore. Need to keep doing it. But we used to have like a wins folder, which was like any good piece of work or good piece of feedback or like good results and metrics you would kind of store in one place. And it just means that when it comes to that interview process, or if it comes to talking about yourself and projects that you've worked on, you've always got a point of reference, you've always got material to back that up. I've definitely been quite lazy with this recently, but I might kickstart it again because why not? Translating your experience. So for example, the role that you're in right now, even if you're not necessarily managing a team, you might be managing a certain project, or you might be doing something that's slightly extracurricular or some sort of creative side quest. So bring that to the table because that also makes up who you are and your existing role. And then also defining your projects as well. So in your current role that you've got, how are you making that work even harder for your CV? It's not necessarily lying, but it is very much about kind of evolving, shaping what you currently do to sound even better and even more valuable to where you're looking to go next. I think when I first started working agency side, I worked as an account executive. I didn't fully understand what that meant. I thought I was going to be working in finance, so I was a bit gutted about that. But then when I realized actually that's a client-facing role, that opened up a whole new kind of vocabulary around pitching, presenting, budget management, time management. Suddenly there are a lot of transferable skills that can be brought to the table through what is essentially just day-to-day kind of client communication. So using that, enhancing your CV and helping that define the path of where you want to go in your marketing career is also really handy as well. And finally, building your credibility. So vanity versus visibility is really important. I think a lot of us fear looking vain or coming across as arrogant when we talk about our own kind of personal career wins, but it's just not the case. You should be using these platforms to do self-promotion, and really it is actually just visibility. And there's a way to do this in a really meaningful way, and it's not just saying, you know, oh, I got this job and that's great, or it's not just this campaign's live and that's great. You might want to talk about things like any barriers that you felt. You might want to talk about the genuine experience behind that, and you could be quite transparent about that process as well. So it's really important because it's not arrogant. You're actually just documenting all of your wins, and you should show that and you should celebrate that. And ideally, your peers should support you within that process as well. And I'll hand over to Corey.
Cool. So this is focusing more on sort of the hard skills that you can develop as part of your career. So if you go, can I do this from the little, no. So I guess the first thing is when you think about what skills you want to do and what training you want to do is really understanding the why. So are you collecting knowledge sort of just in case? Are you wanting to just sort of float around and learn? You know, some of that's really good. Passive learning is fantastic, especially in a first role when it comes to seeing how different people present, seeing how people handle tough conversations, just being able to be around those things is passive learning, and there's definitely an element for it. But when it comes to being strategic, that's more of what you need to think about with what sort of hard skills do I need to upskill myself because I want to make a strategic choice of where my career is going. So understanding the strategy behind it of targeted learning so that it's more goal oriented for you. Ideally, it should fill some sort of a skill gap that links to where you want to go into your career, or maybe potentially what is missing in your company, again, to where you can fill that niche that we kind of talked about at the beginning. So once you understand that, and when we look into strategic development, if you go to the next one, there's sort of 3 different buckets that what the right training could look like. So it could look like a webinar or a talk. I think these are really great for quick insights. Most of the time they'll collect your data and you'll be, recontacted again for new insights that they have or new or updated white papers that they have released. So it's a great way to kind of just stay updated on new trends, get awareness of what's going on in the industry. But because they are low cost, they're often not CV builders. So this might be a good way to sort of fill some time and think about what you want to do and sort of dip your toe in the water before you go on to something that's a bit more specific and deep structured learning like a certification. Certifications are great because they validate your skills in a really formal way. So if you've ever done like a course through the IPA, sometimes there's like an exam at the end or like an essay that you need to write, and then that gets you a certain amount of accredited hours or accredited IPA points. All of the different sort of industry bodies will have their own sort of learning system, but these are really good for building your CV. But the downside with it is that it usually involves some sort of financial investment that either your company and employer would need to make, or if you were that serious about it, you would need to make it through your own, personal investment. So this is one where it goes back to, if you want to do some sort of a certification learning, being able to link it back to the strategic why, which is what I went through in the last slide, that helps build the business case for your company to support you in whatever you want to learn a bit more about. And then obviously there's free platforms. So this is great for exploring, building foundational knowledge. It kind of goes back to the webinars and talks, but they're probably a bit even less informal than webinars and talks. So they're good for trying out a new field. So if you maybe think you're like slightly interested in like, I don't know, Google Analytics, I'm sure there's some sort of a free course where it can tell you what does a bounce rate mean and what does time on site mean, and be able to learn that. You might think, okay, that's really interesting. Why don't I go to a webinar and talk about it? And then why don't I get a certificate from it? Or you might decide, not for me, I don't care. Someone else can do that. I want to pivot and look at something else. So that's kind of a good way to sort of trial it out. So the next slide just talks through some examples. And again, I think you'll get these slides afterwards. Is that right, Kelly? Yeah, so you can look at these later. But Masterclass is a great one. I think if you haven't heard of Masterclass before, a lot of the classes on there are done by like celebrities. So you can learn about menopause with Halle Berry, and you can learn about Margaret Atwood does a fiction writing one, and Shonda Rhimes does a screenwriting one. So you kind of get more personal, um, direct access from these big names that you're hearing. And so I love Masterclass when it comes to building out that what are you passionate about that Kate talked about earlier. It does cost money, and again, you can sell it into your company, or you can maybe make an investment yourself. But it's really good for kind of unlocking like, what am I passionate about and how can I learn about that? And then thinking about, okay, how can I turn that into something that my role needs or something that my next role might need? You likely, I mean, it's good that you guys already have jobs and you're already in a company. So likely your company is part of a marketing or an advertising professional organization or body. There's millions of them. The most common ones are probably the IPA, which is the industry professionals or professions of advertising, professionals of advertising. I can't remember, but it's basically the advertising industry body. There's BIMA, which is like the digital version of that. There's CIM, which is all about marketing. There's DMA, which is all about digital marketing. So you can decide what your role is and what your company is, and there will probably be an industry body you're signed up to. So if you are, I would recommend figuring out which one your company is signed up to, and then go on their website and see what sort of training they have. A lot of them will have free training. So IPA does a lot of free entry level courses as part of your membership. So you can go ahead and take advantage of that. And then they also do sort of paid for membership. So I just took an advanced new business class through IPA, and I think it was like £500. So the agency invested in that. But it was the best 10 weeks. It was 1 hour a week for 10 weeks. And we heard from CEOs, CMOs at all of the big London agencies. And they were so transparent and forthcoming with like levels of detail and information, and almost like good industry gossip. Like you'll never get that training anywhere else. And so that was really, really helpful and effective for me to be able to come in and shape things, how we're doing it in Leaf at the moment. And then there's other free stuff like Microsoft Learn, Google Skillshop, Coursera, edX. You can have a little Google. But yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out some of these if that's what you want to do, a little bit more structured learning.
I used Google Skillshop, I think, at the very, very beginning of my career. There's Google, I think it's called Learning Garage or Digital Garage. So if you're looking to go in like a digital marketing role and you want more kind of knowledge and terminology around sort of like PPC, SEO, website development, Google Digital Garage is a really good and free platform for that as well.
Yeah, and it's good just to brush up on those terms, because I think one of the things that happens, especially as the six of you are probably experiencing right now, is a lot of your job and stuff is just being a sponge in your company and with your teams, and understanding how they speak to each other and how meetings go and how do you sell things and internally and how do you work with clients and suppliers and things like that. And you'll notice, like, I remember when I started L'Oreal, I was handed like a 10-page stapled uh, document. It was just acronyms. And my boss is like, these are all the acronyms you need to know. And I was like, oh my God. Some of them were very L'Oreal specific. Some of them were, marketing macro specific. But just being able to speak the same language so that when you do share your opinion, you can say, oh, actually, I saw the PPC on this. And for them to know that you know what you're talking about sends so many other signals, which is great for your career. But that said, there are red flags when it comes to learning. I think the biggest one is probably the question on the left is it actually moving me closer to my goal and what I want? Or is it a distraction from the real work? Like, I think the shiny object syndrome, summarizes it really well. Are you just drawn to it because it's the newest, trendiest thing? You don't really need it for where you want your career to go, but maybe you're interested in it, or you just like the shininess of it. I think understanding, again, going back to that very first slide of why do you want to learn this, can help you avoid some of these red flags, because learning is amazing, but it's also a great way to procrastinate. And it's a great way to feel productive and like you're doing something great, which most cases you are, but at the same time, it takes away from being able to perform your job. And so it's just keeping those things in balance, that you're doing all of the learning with a big why and not just to go chase a shiny object. So I think that's it on hard skills. What's the next? Oh, yes, it's not it on hard skills. Sorry. So, um, if you want to build a personal learning roadmap, I think this can help you sort of ideally avoid the red flags. It can also help you sell in something to your company if you want that investment from them. But figuring out, taking these steps and charting it out on a course like this will make it much more, I guess, like important for your company, but also it'll make it much more serious for yourself to be able to chart it out like this, as opposed to just like, oh, this looks great, I'll just sign up for it. So step one, identify gaps, then prioritize, choose your format, and then apply and document. Pretty straightforward stuff. But again, I think mapping it out and putting it on pen to paper just makes it that much more real. Is there any questions on that before we go into sort of positioning yourself and sort of training and things? Okay, cool. Great. Cool. So the last section is just sort of positioning yourself for any opportunities that come your way. So I think the first one is just to know that like when opportunities come knocking, just be ready for them. So this goes back to a lot of the stuff that Kate talked about at the beginning of building your personal brand. But how you can show and not tell what you're doing. So is that on LinkedIn? Is that on your website? Is that just through networking and having conversations, which we'll come on to networking in a minute a bit more. When you're actually applying for your next role and thinking about it, just make sure that one thing that really does help is having a why you letter or something that is more specific to the company. I think the biggest downfall of especially hiring young talent is it's all about themselves and nothing is about the company. So it's always important to remember like why are you the perfect person for that role or that company? And part of that is knowing, again, that Venn diagram that Kate shared. If you can translate that into a cover letter, that's perfect. And it's also knowing that company. So it's figuring out what are the gaps in the market that company is not fulfilling. Why is that company hiring an account manager? Did they just win a new account or did someone leave? And so knowing both of those things can help you tailor your experiences coming into it, which makes you a better candidate. So just basically anything you can do to say it's not about me as a person of why I'm great, but it's about why I'm suited for this role and what I can help bring to your company. So just remembering that will make you stand out pretty immediately. What's the next one, Kate? Oh, networking. Great. I personally love networking, and I know you all are going to think it's very cringe because it can be really cringe, but I've worked at 4 companies, had several different roles in them, and I have never gotten a job and I've never gotten promoted without networking. I've never applied somewhere that went into a black hole and then got an interview from, and that's how I got the job. I've gotten all of my roles because I knew someone who knew someone who knew someone, and I just chased that line and talked to them, and it just kind of works out how it does. So I think you just need to get used to networking. And as you get more senior and go up in your career, especially like someone or a position like I have with new business, all of new business is networking based. It's all about who liked working with who and they moved and now they need this sort of skill and oh wait, I remember that person was really great and they work at a company now that has that skill. Let's get in touch with them. All business is done through networking. And so it's nothing it's something that you're just starting out in your career. you're all going to be working till like, we're all going to be working till we're like 70. So you've got 50 years to get used to it, but like you're going to have to network. So you might as well get used to it now. So for me, the biggest thing of networking is really just focus on your first and second degree connections. So if there's someone that you think is really interesting on LinkedIn and you see they're connected, you're only one connection away from them, or maybe you're already connected to them, ask them for some sort of like a curiosity coffee or just an information coffee of just ask them for 15 minutes of their time to talk about their journey or to talk about X topic. One thing also with people, especially as they get more senior, they love to talk about themselves and they love to talk about where they came from and the journey that they went on. So, like, use that vanity to your advantage to build that connection and just listen and ask really smart, intelligent questions. An easy way also is to add value. So, if any of your companies share, we share like a social trends roundup and an AI roundup, and I now do like a business development roundup. So if people share that stuff already internally, and you think, oh, actually, this person just shared this on TikTok. I saw this person talking about TikTok on LinkedIn and they have this need. I'm actually going to share that article with them. Like just share it. And it can be as simple as like, oh, this made me think of you. And then you send it away. And that's great. That's all you need to do. So anything you can sort of add value with, whether that's like an article or research or, whatever you think is interesting. Again, it helps you stand out. It helps you have a point of view. It kind of builds all the way back to everything that Kate kind of talked about at the beginning of the conversation. Obviously, listen more than you talk. Again, people love to talk about themselves, so let them talk about themselves and just ask really good questions and listen and then follow up with it as well. And then one person told me this, and it is the best piece of advice when you end whatever sort of networking, if you have a curiosity coffee or you're just having a chat with someone because you think they're interesting, ask them at the end, like, who in your network do you think I should connect with? No one is going to tell you, I don't think there's anyone in my network you need to connect with, unless they're not people that are going to grow your network. So you probably don't need to put much energy into them if they give you that response. But they will always come back with a response because it puts the onus on them to say, like, oh yeah, I do. Like, who else should, it gets their brains thinking and they will come up with a name or two and then follow up with that name online. That's a really good tool when you're job hunting as well, or if you want to work at a specific company. So let's say you wanted to work at, I don't know, Bioma in Glasgow, and you were connected to someone, you could have that curiosity coffee with them and say, I'm really interested in learning about social at Bioma. Can you connect me with that person? Or is there someone internally that you think you can connect me with? But it's just a great way to sort of end it, but then also put the onus back on them and also to expand your network in a really authentic way. Any questions on networking? Just do it. It can be really fun. It's a good way to have coffee and wine and beer and or matcha, whatever you're into.
Most marketers are just pure yappers as well. I feel like this is why most network takes like an hour to 2 hours, or you have to do big day events because the conversation just keeps on going. But one thing that is good as well is once you kind of have a bit of a like cobweb of people that you're connected with, it makes things like going to events way easier because you can kind of just find a friend and be like, oh, thank God you're here, because being here by myself would have been really intimidating. But because you've already made that first step, even if it is digitally, then yeah, you've made the first step, and that's important.
Totally. And I also think in Scotland, it is the tiniest network. Everyone in Scotland, whether it's work or personal, is like 2 degrees of separation. So, like, if you can network early and you can get to know people earlier, it will make all those events the next 50 years of your working life. If you stay here in Scotland, it'll make you so much, uh, not richer in a money sense, but like, it'll make you just so much richer and so much more connected. Yeah. So we thought with that in mind, I mean, there's only 9 of us here total on the call, but we thought we should just practice it. So I think we're going to split everyone up into their own rooms, like sub rooms, and it's just 2 of you in a room. But use that time to just network. So just if you don't know each other, talk about what your role is, what you do. If you want to talk about your niche, if you want to talk about what you're passionate about, if you want to talk about how great Kate and I are, or also how shit Kate and I are, it's your own time to network.
Yeah, that's so fair.
So Kelly, if you want to separate us, it's just like 5 minutes as well.
Do you and Kate want to be involved in them as well, or do you want
Yeah.
to, yeah?
Oh, why not? Stick me in a room.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, well, you can't tell Kate and I how shit we are if you're in our room.
I'll do it to my face. That's fine.
Yeah, just tell us nice things. We like to hear about ourselves.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Uh,
How did you get on?
Good. We just gabbed for 2 minutes about everything and anything.
Just nice to have a catch up.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll just wait for the others to rejoin us. Love that it's Corey and Kate's rooms that are the last ones to rejoin.
Hello.
Hello.
Are we all back?
We're just waiting for Corey and Louisa
Classic.
to reshare the presentation.
Yes. Let me do that. Bear with me.
Just close their room.
Nice. Did everybody enjoy that? Did we have some good chats? Was it awkward at first?
Should just be coming back in now.
No worries.
I think you've got a wee Q&A next, so you can kind of.
Yes, if anyone's got any hard-hitting questions.
Well, my first hard-hitting question is, how did everyone feel about that networking? You can take yourself off mute and tell us.
Fine. It was quite enjoyable. It was it's nice sometimes to chat with people at a similar stage in their career. I know in my role, there's not so much opportunity for that, so it was quite enjoyable.
No,
Yeah,
Oh,
same.
that's great.
good.
That's the other thing is like networking amongst your peers because all of you will continue working and rising and all of that is like you don't always need to network with more senior people. You should definitely network within yourselves, which is great.
Yeah.
Cool. Were there any further questions from today's session, or just about the networking or about the Marketing Society? We are happy to answer any queries at all. All good?
Naomi, it looks like you might
I
have
was-
one on the tip
I
of
was
your
gonna
tongue.
ask, what are the best networking platforms that you've been on? Is it kind of LinkedIn or like events like this? I've been to a few of the Marketing Society ones before, actually.
Good question. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool. So yeah, obviously LinkedIn, despite the love-hate relationship with it. But it is really good. And also it's kind of what the platform was always intended for. And I think for the sake of having like a decent kind of healthy boundary, you don't really want to be having anybody on Instagram or any other kind of more social network at this stage of your career. But I would say it's really important to get a balance of online and offline networking. So online, yes, in the sense of things like LinkedIn or talks like this, where we force you into rooms to network. But also offline in the sense of it can be more sort of social events, Christmas drinks. There's lots of different kind of wider organizations and networks out there as well. So the Marketing Society is really good. You might find that you might have some sort of more localized network. There are a lot of organizations that are specifically set up for women in marketing as well. So there's like Bloom Scotland, for example, is one of them, which is really nice. And yeah, I think it's about kind of doing the research to try and find those different circles. But I find that it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. If I connect with that person in a digital format, it makes the in-person conversation way easier. And the number of times I've had a conversation with somebody where it's like, oh, we've not met, but I definitely have connected with you on LinkedIn. And I'm like, yes, that's definitely been the first kind of stepping stone. So yeah, I would say that's my sort of approach to networking. Corey, I don't know if you have anything else to add?
Yeah, similar. I think it depends who you want to network with and then go where they are. So if you want to network in a passion area, if you want to network in a specific job role function area, then you can find networking opportunities that fit that and then go meet those people. One trick I do as well is because sometimes, I mean, I think the best networking comes in person, but that does come with like the most anxiety, I guess, especially to introduce yourself to new people. So one trick I do, and sometimes you just run out of time when you're at an event to actually speak to all the people that you want to speak to. Most of the events, and Marketing Society is really good at this, most of the events will tell you who came and from what company. And so you can find them on LinkedIn afterwards and say, hey, I saw you at this thing. You gave a good speech or whatever. I wanted to introduce myself, but I ran out of time. Or you can even be vulnerable and say you were nervous. People will get that. But could we connect like at a later date? So basically, you're telling them that you're there at that event, and then you're asking for your own sort of connection online in more of a safe space. And then you can go network, and it usually fosters deeper connection because it's that sort of curiosity coffee that own like 15-30 minutes of just like your own time with them. So that helps as well to kind of because sometimes, especially when you're first starting out, you go to an event and you're so overwhelmed with all the people and don't know where to start. Or a lot of the people you'll want to network with know people there, so they'll be speaking to their little groups as well. So it's hard to like break in authentically without being like, hey, come speak to me. So that's like a trick that helps. Yeah.
Or often people can ask you about your role in your company, but because you're only like 6 months or a year into the job, you might not know everything yet. And so I've always had that where I'm like, oh, I want to tell you everything I do know, but feel like I'm just through the door kind of thing. So yeah, I feel it can be nerve-wracking, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes, I would say.
A good first step as well is asking your line manager, like just telling your line manager, and it could be something that you put on your objectives for the year, is that you want to expand your network in Scotland or in a passion topic or whatever in an area, and ask them like, okay, I want to get my name more well known in Scotland, like who do I need to meet and what events do I need to go to? And that they will tell you because it's in their interest to like for you to grow. And it's a natural, easy thing. And they'll know people like, oh, actually, you should meet so and so, and then they can set up an introduction, which is also much more natural.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
No worries. Any other questions, thoughts, feelings, Venn diagram related queries? Are we all just thinking about lunch? Is that what's happening? Okay.
Well, in the interest of networking with Kate and I, you can
Wow.
add us on LinkedIn. It's like we planned this. Connect with us on LinkedIn and we'll be more than happy to have more chats with you if you want. Or if there's people that we're connected with that you would like to be introduced to, just give us a shout. Yeah.
Be happy to help.
Cool. Okay,
Lovely.
great. Well, thank you guys so much. I know Kelly's got some marketing society stuff to wrap up with.
I do, just before we finish up today, just to let you know about a few events we do have coming up that you can network at. So we have the wonderful St Andrew's Day dinner next week, which is a really nice celebration to mark the end of the year, where we're going to hear from Siobhan Mackenzie, fashion designer, and the Glasgow 2026 Commonwealth Games team. So that should be pretty exciting. And we finish it off with a lively Kaylee. So it's always a nice end of year networking event. We've then also got the Star Awards Showcase online, which will take place on the 2nd of December, which is free to come along to. If any of you are involved in writing papers for your organisations, it's a great one to come along to and hear from past winning campaigns on tips and tricks for writing those award-winning entries. And then finally our festive drinks, which is also another free to attend. Great event, end of the year. Everyone's winding down. It takes place at the Corinthian Club in Glasgow on the 11th of December. We'll also keep you updated on future First Row Fundamental sessions coming up for 2026. If you do have any feedback or ideas of things you want to see at future sessions, please do email us on the Marketing Society email and let us know. These are obviously designed to be your sessions and we'd really love to hear from you before we start planning for 2026. But for now, I would just like to say thank you to both Corey and Kate for a brilliant session, and I will let you all get away to your lunches.
I would say as well, if anyone's coming to the festive drinks on the 11th of December, on the note of networking, I will be there. So you already know one person there, so that's good. So yeah, if you happen to be going, I'll see that.
Love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.